We are in the cafe again, C-Suite Cafe. And like always, we bring you leaders whose opinion drive and guide the economy and the social things that we do here in Nigeria. We call this place the Decision Makers Hangout because it's only decision makers and key top people at the highest level of the food chain that we're bringing for you on this show. Today, we have a young man who has made a difference for himself in both leadership and, if you like, rewarding society for responsibility, rewarding companies for responsibility, and he is here. He has done quite a lot in leadership. He has done quite a lot in the Nigerian marketing communication. He has done quite a lot in leadership encouragement, if you accept that coinage. He is here today, and he is the CEO of True Contact, Ken Egbas. Ken, you are welcome to the cafe.
Thank you so much, Ikem. You know, when I was coming here, I had to prepare for you because I know that following your works over the years is like sitting with the professor of other journalists.
No. You are lucky. I am.
You have toned down.
No, not just have toned down. This one is a learning, is a new horizon for me. I've not done TV before. I only appear on TV as a guest. Now, I'm now the person that is asking the questions, not receiving the questions. So maybe I need to go through the tutelage before I mature.
But you've had a wonderful career, I must say.
Thank you so much.
You were one of those journalists when I started my career in 2005. There were like 4 or 5 of you, and I said, I used to consume everything you wrote, and I made it a point of duty to follow you, to relate with you, because I felt that, you know, if someone like this sees what I do and takes it and put it out there, it means I've done well for myself. So you think I'm the one honoring you right now? No. Or you're the one honoring me? No. I think the most important thing is that it's a privilege to share space with people like you. Our country is such that we don't recognize talent. Even when we recognize them, we don't give them the kind of respect and the reverence they deserve. Ikem, you have done wonderful for journalism in Nigeria, and I think you are the one we should be celebrating.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I humbly accept that, but I see myself as an eternal student. I keep learning, I keep seeking new horizons, I keep struggling to stamp my footprint in the sense of time. I've never really chased money, but in terms of being good, not even the best at what I do, I pay a lot of attention to that. So thank you, and that's how we get started with our quickfire question, the very first segment of this your session in the cafe. Would you rather work in Nigeria or abroad?
Well, that's a very interesting question. You know, sometime earlier on in my life, when I had the opportunity to travel to the UK or travel out of this country for the first time, I remember the experience I had walking the streets of London, arrangement of the houses, the roadsides were paved, everything proper. And I used to ask myself, as I walk around, sightseeing, what do these people have different? What makes them think the way they do? Why do they array their environment in such order? And what is wrong with us back home? And I remember when I went through that experience, you know, something happened in my head where I told myself that, you know what, no matter what happens, these people, the reason why there's this much order, where there's little, even when there's chaos, it's organized chaos, is because they have aspiration for higher values, higher level of excellence, and all of that. So I took that with me, you know. So the man who got on the plane out of Nigeria to London was a different person from the one who came back. And from that point on, it had made me see myself in this way. Whatever my hands finds to do, whatever my mind finds to process, right? I would be processing those and trying to create products and that would match with my counterpart or what my counterpart is producing in the US, in the UK, anywhere in Europe, anywhere in this world. And that has been my mentality. I'm one of those people who believes in this country. The fact that even people who are not on a certain level of skill have gone out and they're standing out also shows that, you know what, if we, regardless of our situation and our political, socio-economic environment, that there's so much here to be done. And for some of us, we've seen this as a mission, a life mission, to stay back, no matter how much we are mocked, no matter how exciting the opportunities out there might be, and tell ourselves that, you know what, there are some of us who are born to stay in this country and make this country work, whichever way we can. Whether people remember or celebrate us in our lifetime doesn't matter, but we're going to do it all the same. So to answer directly, I'd rather work here. I think for me, this is where all the opportunities are, to be who I am, to be someone even greater, better, more renowned. If I don't have the challenges back home, then I'm irrelevant. Those challenges don't exist anywhere else in this world. So I'm born to work and succeed here in Nigeria.
As they say, we die here.
I die here.
Money or fame? One?
But I think
Money or fame? If you were given the option.
so. There's a correlation between money and fame. Now, when you are not very informed, right, you choose money because money appears the shortcut through everything that we think is a challenge in life. It pays your bills, it solves your problems. Money even makes you famous when you have plenty of it, right? Then fame on the other side, for people to know you. But there are two kinds of fame. Fame for doing the right thing and notorious
Notoriety.
notoriety. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if you have notoriety, your fame will last for a period. But if you're a value-driven person, which I think is the epitome of a purpose-driven life, the tendency is that you're going to arrive at whatever scene you get in your career and you're working on something, right? And something inside you, like it tells me all the time, is that that thing I am looking for is tied to my delivering this. So when I deliver this and solve other people's problems, and people find me as an inlet to draw, to dampen their, or reduce their frustration, or I'm producing a solution that solves their problem, then that is when you have good fame that comes with value. And doesn't only come with value, whenever you have fame that comes with value, money chases you. Most of the time, frustration and poverty has conditioned us to believe and feel that we must chase money. But if you look at very successful people around the world, they don't chase money. They take that thing that is inside their spirit, calling their name even when they are sleeping, and they begin to work at it and create something. Then you see what? The whole world begin to gravitate
Flood in
towards
that direction.
And that's the kind of wealth that never dries.
Wealth that doesn't dry, fame over fortune, or fame gives fortune. So we clean glasses and bring this session to a close.
Yeah.
You are the strongest voice when it comes to whether you're talking about corporate social responsibility, whether you're talking about sustainability for corporations in this market. What even informed you taking that position as a one-man vanguard for instilling corporate social responsibility and sustainability habits and attitude in corporate Nigeria?
Okay, so first I must say this, right? I'm a public relations man.
Yeah, I know that.
When we're going through public relations training, the definition that is commonly used is that the major skill a PR person must have, he must be able to look into the future, observe the trends and practices, so that you can come back and advise your clients or whoever you work for on how to prepare for that future. Most of the time when you have reactionary PR, where we are managing crisis all the time, it means you did not plan for the future. As a young man, I came into the industry, I looked around at the top consulting firm. I can remember cutting posters, pictures of guys like Yomi Badijo of Quickfire, of CMC Connect. I remember cutting a picture of a guy called Leke Alda who was doing marketing consulting. And I remember quite a number of people, Charles Otudo, the gentleman Steve Omajafo, I just used to put that, and Abiodun Shobanjo. So on the little place I had as a space, so I had their pictures. And I used to tell myself as an upstart, I don't want to call myself a startup at that time, because there are two different things, to be an upstart and a startup. The difference is that an upstart, you don't even know what you're doing, you're just driven by something inside you. A startup means you're starting a business.
You have defined what you want to do.
There was no
beginning.
definition from me, right? And I used to look at these people and said, in this industry, I would one day like to be like these people. So they were pinned up just at my desk, But in all of that, I had to ask myself, these guys have taken big chunks of everything that was anything.
Yeah, in the market.
How was I going to come in that people are going to hear me? So I started researching and all of that. And maybe because that time I was in a very spiritual place, I want to give credit to God that He led me to that niche. Because by 2020, 2005, it was nothing in Nigeria. But the studies showed me it was the next coming movement, brand differentiation, holding with the advent and rise of consumerism at the time, that a time was coming, which is already here with us, where brands and organizations were not going to be communicating at consumers, but they will be having a kind of interaction that's driven by the spirit of negotiation, where the brands are understanding now that these people are not just numbers or data that we use to measure statistics to do our marketing plan, but people who are invested in the brand and who are looking at evolving and developing deeply a relationship, affinity with brands. Market was changing, where you don't come to that place where you say, oh, I make this detergent, just take your mechanic's oil-soaked overall and dip it in the water with the detergent and it's bright as snow. People are becoming more distrustful. People are becoming more demanding. People expect brands to be responsible, not just for the promises they make that they don't keep, but responsible for the danger and the damage they create by being present in society. So that was coming, what was coming was the advent of corporate social responsibility, where it was going to be brands now speaking the language of their consumers and showing them that they mattered. And of course, that has evolved into sustainability, what sustainability is now. So over time, so what I did was I started, even though it looked like I didn't know where I was going, but that sometimes a wave will come in your career or your life, right? You have to take your surfboard and just ride it. If the wave goes, When the wave rises next time, it will be for another person. So I was fortunate that I understood it at that point and positioned myself, and that's how True Contact CSR or True CSR, which is our trade name, as the first Nigerian consulting brand, focused purely on sustainability and CSR. And that's how we got birthed in 2006.
To what extent has, whether you're talking about True Contact, whether you're talking about True CSR, to what extent have you impacted corporate Nigeria? We have a lot of questions in the basket, but just highlight what are some of the things you have been exerted and extracted from this market, especially knowing the nature of the Nigerian market.
Yeah. Now, talking about the nature of the Nigerian market, except a trend directly and immediately threatens Nigerian businesses and brands with extinction, they do not respond. So when we came up with CSR and trying to make organizations understand that the future is here, and this is where it's going, of course, I know quite a number of senior people in the industry I approached with my idea, and they said stuff to me like, oh, yeah, what you're saying makes sense, but Nigeria is not America, it's not Europe, it's not all those things. It will take some time. But people who held those views didn't understand that the marketing space had fundamentally changed throughout the 90s. That's why a financial upheaval in the financial system in America will spiral down to Lagos. So there are some trends that you have to understand, So those early days, it was difficult, But what we did was that God gave us insights that didn't come from being smart, wise, or intelligent. It was just intuition. And intuition is, I always tell people, intuition is not most times what you know, it's something that comes to you because you are open to something that is on a higher level than yourself. And we continue to position. I remember then having conversations with two people who are they were like my bounce board, my advisors, people I really looked up to, Professor Patu Tommy and Dr. Christopher Collade at the time. And I shared this idea with them. I remember one of them said, Ken, this is a very good idea, but do you think it will work? But I remember Dr. Collade came up and said, look, this thing that you want to do, this is what I think you should do. I see where you're going, but if you want more people to imbibe this culture, this new culture that you say is coming, we have to create a platform that celebrates those people who follow that path so that more people will join them on that journey. And that's what gave birth to the Nigeria CSR Awards, which commenced in 2007. And by the time we turned 10 years, we found out that we were getting emails and telephone calls from organizations in Ghana and other parts of the country, other parts of the continent, meaning that even in their own country, that was a challenge as well. So by the time we made 10 years, it became Pan-African affair.
When did SERAS become 10?
That must have been 2016. That's where we went.
So you're like 20...
No, so this is our 19th year.
19th year.
19th year.
Next year will be 20.
Yeah.
What has SERAS achieved that is taking it to Africa?
Today we've achieved so much. We've achieved so much. One of the reasons, and I'll take this credit even if nobody gives it to me, or gives it to us as an organization, one of the biggest achievements is we always ask the questions before the Sustainable Development Goals set up by the United Nations. There was the Millennium Development Goals.
Yes.
The question is, why did it fail? Why was it that the Millennium Development Goals, that were just 9 in number, right? Nigeria made only 1 out of 9. countries like Rwanda. I think the best performing country on the continent at that point, if I remember rightly, was a country like Botswana that made up to 3 or 4. Nigeria made only 1. So grossly, it was a failure for the African continent. And you see, when there are policies like Millennium Development Goals or development-oriented goals set by the United Nations, even though we have hunger in the West, right, and other parts of the world, usually those the primary target for some of those interventions are continents like ours and some part of South America. So if you talk about the failure of the Millennium Development Goals, you're talking about 80% of the failure of Africa, and Nigeria was at the fore. That kind of population, that kind of wealth, that kind of potential, we couldn't drive development. So the question is, to answer your question, then came the SDGs, where they took 9 goals, broke them into smaller fragments. But if you look at Africa now, we're performing better in the metrics, in terms of measurement.
Yeah.
There might be challenges and all of that. So the question is why? The reason why we are where we are today, why we are making the progress we are, I will use Nigeria as a start point, is that in Nigeria today, in terms of assimilation, when I mean assimilation, organizations get into that place of saying, okay, we're not doing this thing, we used to do it for compliance, but we're now beginning to understand that it is for the benefit of our company or organizations for us to be able to do these things right. It helps us to position better internationally, right? So today we have about almost an 80-85% adoption in sustainability as a way of life for brands. And it excites me, right? People call me from, how do you make money? We don't make money. In fact, I'll tell you for free, the highest amount of sponsorship we have ever received in the history, our 19-year history, came from the FIRS when we had Ifeko or Caro as chairman of the FIRS. Yeah. And she saw what we were doing and felt that if I'm promoting responsible tax behavior, this is a platform for us to promote response. So taxation is part of responsibility too. And yes, there was that. Since then, we've been running like that, just trying to make sure the project continue to run. And for me, the excitement, if you're asking what's our other achievements, today the Nigerian brands, everybody is on it. You hardly go to any serious organization these days, even to the SMEs, where they don't have, go to their website, there's a sustainability policy. Now, where people would have waited for government to enforce, right, there was no enforcement this time. The SERAS, which has now become the awards, which has now become the SERAS Africa Sustainability Awards, created that platform where people submit to how we lead them, what we show them at the next frontiers. All over this country and now spreading into other parts of Africa, we are seeing brands very eagerly waiting for the next edition of the awards to be able to send us materials and proof, not of how much they made, not of how many new branches they have, not of the height of their building and the gold endearments that are on the building, not of the number of employees that they have. The paradigm has shifted. People now understand that for us to show how much progress we are making as an organization or a company, we have to tie that to advancement in society, the number of people that have access to education, the number of 1-day-old to 5-day-old children that don't have to die because of poor health care, the number of mothers that we don't lose on the table when they are giving birth, the number of and the amount of people who have access to clean water, because we're a beverage manufacturing company. And in a world where that we are maybe 80% water, yet there's only 3% drinkable water. If we're using out of those resources, which is water, to make the drinks that we sell, that makes us profitable, it is therefore, it is not by force, it is important to us as an organization to ensure that we have right now more than that 3% drinkable water for us to continue to be in business.
Now, Ken, very interesting. Companies now make intentional efforts as a matter of corporate policy to incorporate sustainability practices, responsible corporate behavior in their daily grind. I want to ask, what do you do to ensure that even though it is their responsibility to do that, but you are the person who have encouraged this behavior? What do you do to help them maximize the benefits of this compliance? In terms of letting the consumers know, in terms of all the necessary mileage that commands. Are there things you do to make sure that companies who comply derive those benefits without them having to invest again in leveraging those practices?
Yeah, so there are quite a lot of things. You see, this conversation with the companies and what they get out of it is something that has evolved over time. But the common sense one is this. Why do brands exist? Why do brands have competition?
To make money.
Because there is going to be need for differentiation.
Exactly.
Now, the brands are beginning to understand that differentiation today is not fought on the basis of color of your product compared to mine. Differentiation today is in the hearts of the consumers. The advent of consumerism in the late 80s throughout the 90s, and you see that playing out in the media as well, democratized choice. And in democratization of choice, what it does is that you further empower the right of free will. And for free will to take root, it means that somebody or a group of persons or cluster of people that are an important segment to your profitability are taking decisions based on certain things they are sensing about your person, which would determine whether they like or they don't like, whether they buy or they don't buy your product. So in terms of how we have been able to get this organization to come along is because they have understood very clearly that this is not Ken's war or true CSR war or the war of sustainability practitioners. No, it's a war of reason. And actually, because it's the war of reason, it's about existential for them. Their existence, their right to continue to trade, their right to continue to belong in those societies.
Now, Ken, let me interject a bit. Very well explained. But we are increasingly seeing a situation whereby producers, businesses are becoming alternate governments, where communities have grown entitled to making demands of corporations because of certain entitlements generated from sustainability programs, from responsible business practices programs. Are we good when we continue to encourage this trend of communities demanding, almost forcing companies to do certain things that they otherwise wouldn't have done?
Yeah.
Impacting their profits, impacting other critical fundamentals of business numbers. They otherwise wouldn't have done it. They otherwise wouldn't, even if they are going to be there because people like you demand accountability of companies. But in terms of volume and value, they wouldn't have gone to that threshold. Do you agree that people, communities, consumers are becoming entitled by making demands of corporations who otherwise would have concentrated in making profit?
Okay, so the thing is, to answer your question now, is a situation of the chicken and the egg.
Which one comes
Which
first?
one comes first? The question is this, and I think we all understand that. If you did not set up an oil rig, right, in my community, for example, where my great-grandfathers were fishermen, were farmers, they tilled the soil, and today, all over that environment, the people do not have a means of livelihood because the fishes are dead. The ground cannot grow anything. If those things were working like they were before you came and set up the rig, would the people make a demand on you? Possibly not. Because this thing about, yes, there are communities where the thing is overreaching, you know, there's militancy and all of that. But what gave birth to those scenarios, we have to critically address at first. And ask ourselves that as an organization, yes, our focus is profitability, right? But are we accountable to the people that we met on the land? So if the people try to get our attention, because what they would expect us to do most of the time is know that, oh, you are stopping me from, so those things should come naturally. I think that starts at the gap. That is creating all of this. The second part of the question you ask is this, right? And I face that all the time from corporate leaders. Is it now the responsibility of corporate organizations to take on the role of government?
To tar roads, provide water.
Exactly.
And increasingly,
Exactly.
like politicians have sold to us, provide
No,
palliatives.
I'm coming to that. So that's the argument. Should we do that? The question is this, right? Ikem, you went to a very good school. I can tell from the quality of the things that you do. You went to a good school, university, right? Now, if that school, the schools you attended, university didn't exist, right? You will not be here. We won't be having this conversation. Now, the tendency is this, right? So if brands sit back and say that it is not our responsibility, it is the responsibility of government. So let me paint the picture for you. So you come to a community, you're the only one doing well. You have a 21-story skyscraper, gold windows, and every building around you is hashed. And your sign of progress alone is found with you. Can such a society be stable? It cannot. Where there's that extent of inequitable distribution of not just wealth, but opportunities, and even propensity to dream is that limited, those societies cannot. So when you see the thing about trying to balance it, I am not an advocate of irresponsible governance or government or poor leadership. But you see, there's a systematic, I think that the eggheads at that level of policy making at the United Nations have looked at these things. They see Africa and part of the developing world. They see corporate organizations doing very well because standards are maintained and expectations are high and met. And they look at the public sector and they see the failure in the public sector. I think when they come up with things like whether the MDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals, what they are trying to preach is that, you know what, it would be nice if the best of the private sector and the middle level, now I don't want to say the worst of the public sector, can come together to create some magic so that development will happen as is happening on the private sector. And the intellect and the abilities and the gift of those who successfully run business can flow into helping to get development programs also running. I think that is the balance. The third part, which is the answer to that question, is this, right? In 1945, there was this gentleman, and that is what a lot of corporates used to argue about. I don't hear much of it nowadays. I think it's Milton Friedman, 1945, and he said this. He said, the sole purpose of every business is to make money for the shareholders. Fantastic argument. That guy in his time was a solid mind, a thought leader. So when he makes statements like that, it makes sense. But if you wake him up from his grave today, in 2025, and all his arguments, things would have shifted. And why has it shifted? Because there's been an evolution, right? So there's shareholders who used to be like maybe 3, sometimes 1% of an organization, and today they are stakeholders. Now, 1945, the stakeholders didn't show their power, they didn't show their teeth, they just took whatever they were served. But today the stakeholders have their citizen media, as we call them. They have their phones. They come in contact with something that your brand is doing wrong, right? And they do a video, and it goes viral. You've lost 10% of your market in 1 hour. Those are shareholders, those are stakeholders now. So while the shareholders remain important because they provide the enablement, the amplitude, the finances, and everything that helps the business to set up, it is very important for them to stay alive to now understand that there's a stakeholder group that determines whether they live or they die. So there has to be a balance. It's like a two-edged sword. There has to be a balance in how you manage all of this, you know. But like I said at the start, brands are beginning to understand, and I think that's the good part for me, that we're not doing you a favor, right? When we invest in education, in these community schools that I don't send my kids to, you probably don't send your kids to, but there are people in the society, in our communities, who can afford the kindergarten fee, school fees I pay.
Yes.
Yeah, but to make that school to be able to produce people who can be professors from primary to universities, because they also understand, you know what, they will come back to work for them. They also understand that the people who work for them, when they are not well, will need to go to the public hospital or some kind of hospital. So businesses cannot sit, it's impossible now until the next 100 years, not just in Nigeria or Africa, anywhere in the world, and say it is not our business.
So you're saying that the romance, the current romance between what I would term moralism and capitalism is going to be a growing trend.
Definitely. Definitely. So everything, so what you have generally in the world, it came with that. See, there's a convergence. Recognize it, ride it. Deny it, die. Everything is coming together. That's why I keep saying, it's not just in Africa, everywhere in the world. The citizen, today, you know, if you look at the media that we are part of, you find out that the media has become smaller by becoming bigger. Now you might wonder what I mean by that. Quality has reduced. Why? Even the illiterate who never went to school takes a post. Everything that he sees, whether he has an opinion, whether informed or not. And sometimes these very uninformed opinions have people who they influence.
Yes.
Whether they take them the right path or they drag them with them. Yeah, they have power. Now, real media content coming from professionals like yourself is not even reaching as wide as these citizen media who are all over the place. That's why I said the media has diluted a bit. It has become smaller by becoming wider because, you know, they don't have entry modes for. That's why you have the growth and the widespread fake news. AI has come and made it worse. Nothing is static. Nothing. So if I'm a brand manager, if I'm a CEO of an organization, you know, there was a time people used to look at sustainability or CSR and people who are advocating as these people are their movement. It's not about a movement. It's a move towards the future. And there is no brand that projects its marketability on the present. None. If you are projecting on the present, you're already dead again. It's on the future. And the currency that is being spent today globally has to do with sustainability. If you look at our industry public relations, you'll find out that around the world, if you check the advanced market, you will notice a trend also. That also ties to this. If you go to America, you find drop in, this wow advertising, it's gone down. Even though our PR environment in Nigeria hasn't responded to that, but if you go to America, you find out that companies are going, there used to be hard campaigns, soft campaigns. What are soft campaigns? It's campaigns where you try to connect with the emotional string or tug at the emotional string of the consumer, right? They're going towards that. Everything has changed.
Let's look at, it has become standard practice for corporations. They can't afford not to do responsible business because reputation is capital for them and for businesses as well. But what informs the choice of interventions that companies make for sustainability, for CSR, beyond the immediate environment?
Yeah, so the answer to that question will vary from organization to organization. And what we always say to all the organizations is that, never you look at the story or the journey, sustainability journey of another company. Because whether CSR or sustainability, the first thing first is this, right? When you get your sustainability or CSR strategy right, it connects to the vision of the company. Earlier on I gave an example. If I was the CEO of a brewery or a beverage production company, major thing I use for my production is water, right? So that's what we call materiality. Now, what is material to me that also interfaces with the environment? And while I'm taking out of that, right, I'm also, so that there's a balance. I don't use, because sustainability simply means, right, please, as you are drinking this coffee, right, drink it in such a way
that we'll have another coffee tomorrow.
Not you, that when your child becomes your age, he or she has
access to coffee.
Summary, that's what sustainability is. CSR sometimes talk about ethical behavior.
Yeah.
Sustainability talks about the future, making sure that as we use this water, as we harvest all this corn, we are planting more. As we are harvesting these trees for wood that we use to make paper for children, we are planting more because those wood also help the eco, oxygen, the balance that we need and all of that. So for me, those are things that we need to be able to put in context, right? So organization A, I remember a few years ago, I sat with a CEO, MD of a bank, and it took me so long to get before this man, and I really wanted to, because I thought that their brand had everything that I needed if they would allow me to lead them in this direction. Yes. So I sat just like we're sitting now. And the man said, that brand, the other bank, they're just doing roads. We too, we are going to do road. I found that very interesting. It wasn't just a statement he was making. He meant it. And they had the finances. And that's what they wanted to do. But the rationale for that was wrong. Because you see, you don't know why the other band or bank did a road. If you check that road, you find out that as much as 3/4 of the properties on that road belongs to them.
Yes.
So, you understand? Even though people use it, but there must have been a strategy. But so if you're a brand and you're the other side and that's what you want to copy, your strategy from the onset is faulty. When I took him through all of that, and he suddenly hit him. So I said, look, before you start on your sustainability journey, why did you set up your business? What is the vision statement? The vision statement is that ideal future that you see and how you're going to run. Then where does that interface with people, your brand? You must link it all so that in the end, you know what sustainability is? It becomes effortless. You're not forcing it. You're just becoming yourself. It becomes you. Because you know what? At the end of the day, you and I have been friends for years. The reason why we've been friends and I have a lot of respect for what you do and you respect what I do is because we see value in each other. Otherwise, you could have chosen not to like me, I could have chosen not to like you.
Yes.
But so sustainability helps us to, that quotient that helps us to get people to pay more attention to what we do, how we do it, and by paying more attention to what we do, makes them to call their neighbors. You know, those days they used to talk about word of mouth. It's bigger now, because if I understand that, people are making decisions, I'm telling you, by what they see. This brand, they're the ones making sanitary towels available to girls in GS1 who are menstruating for the first time. And guess what? Parents take that. The girls themselves, as they grow to become adults and later mothers, they carry that brand. These people used to call, it's deep, the relationship is deep. And tell me, all the work you have done with brands and marketing, which company or organization do you see that does not want to evolve or develop a deep relationship with the consumer? They're not ready to be in business.
Now, I've been in both corporate and private sides of this business, and there's a growing, I don't know whether it's pretentiousness, where organizations invest in projects, so-called sustainability, so-called CSR, that directly profits them.
Yeah.
Should this be the case? And I'll give you an instance. Company A builds, probably finance companies, builds a dialysis center in a teaching hospital with an instruction and commitment from the hospital that every kobo from patients seeking dialysis should come
To their bank.
to their bank. Does that qualify? Is that a sustainability CSR project or an investment? I mean, expansion.
Okay, so when you go through Nigeria, Ghana, well, let me not go to other African countries. See, when you look at Nigeria alone, I know an oil and gas company that they'll tell you, we don't do CSR, we do social investment.
Okay.
Some people will call it corporate investment. People give it different
All
names,
sorts of names.
all sorts of names. The reason is why, and it's beginning to change over the last 4 years. All of them are beginning to understand it better. See, to be honest, we need to situate ourselves within the problem sometimes, even as custodians of this brand or people who oversee the brands. If I came to a place, right, and the hospital is made standard by a particular bank, right, and I experience it, do you need to force me or convince me that that brand or bank that has contributed to my being alive, that I need somebody to coerce me to bank with them? I don't. So people who do that do not understand the extent of sustainability, because sustainability is such that once you get it right, there are certain things that you don't have to force. They just come because people understand. And that is what is happening. So anybody who does that is not ethical. Whatever process you are trying to introduce in the marketplace, right, there will be people who try to cut corners. There was a trend called greenwashing. And what is greenwashing? People just, they just make it look like, because they started to see sustainability and CSR as a compliance thing. So let's just do it because of compliance. So when they come to inspect our papers, they just tick the boxes.
Yes.
But later they began to find out that they were wrong. Today, if you're going to the NGX, you're listed on Nigeria Stock Exchange, you are expected not only to submit your financial report, but your sustainability report as well. And this is in line, even when NGX came with that, it was late because South Africa does it. Most of the markets in Africa, developed markets, are doing it. All over Europe is a requirement. So at this point, there are certain things, that you can't do anymore. I'm not denying that those situations exist, right? But what I understand is that with time, the bad practices will face themselves out.
I must have to ask, maybe 2 or 3 more questions before we call it a time. The fate of the Nigerian PR industry.
Yeah.
Are things going as professionally well as they should?
No, it's not. No, it's
Break
not.
it down.
See, I am happy that over the last 6 years, 7 years, we're having some new agencies being birthed, right? And they're taking some of the big chunks from the guys who had been there for a long time. So what you're seeing from me, the way I see the market evolving, on the industry evolving, there are young people who are coming with a lot of energy, yeah. But you see, the state of the market is such that it's not energy that drives. Energy will carry you of youth, of exuberance, of excitement. It will take you to a certain level. But beyond that is the ability to put together a proper practice. I mean, one day I read an article and I asked myself, how come we have all this Boston, all this Fleischmann Hilliard coming to Africa to look for affiliates to hold down their multinational accounts that they have? Why are we not having brands, communication or PR brands that are growing out of Nigeria and setting up shops? Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's because, I don't want to call it what in local parlance a colonial mentality, but I see that most times when we set up the practice, right, we set up the PR practice with 90% in most agencies, media relations capacity other than strategy. Because when you get strategy right, you'll be able to understand that what is happening in America at this time, what is happening in New York at this time, and everybody is dovetailing, right, into storytelling, soft communications. That sometimes you don't even know who is communicating, but there's a way they communicate that they make you begin to quest after who is this person. They use teasers a lot, you know.
Yes.
So the industry has changed. We need to do a lot of catch up. I'm very impressed, to be honest, the leadership of the present president of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Yeah, he's doing a lot of things and a lot of shaking up that nobody has done in the last 20, 30 years. Activating a relationship with PRCAN, trying to make organizations and even governments understand the importance of the practice. So maybe these things, if they happened 20 years ago, we'll be in a better place today. So I would say we're in a good place now going forward, but we need to consolidate. The Nigerian PR industry is so peculiar that whatever we should be getting best practice stories from Nigeria because of our environment. We are moving towards that. And how, if you look at the SERAS Awards recently, you see the performance of this organization. Nigeria is beginning to get a lot of mentions and all of that. So going forward, I think we are on our way up. But we might also have all these energies of these new entrants who are getting the big accounts these days, and they get to where they plateau. Because the concept has to go beyond a certain level that has been for years.
Okay, let's talk about SERAS.
Yeah.
90 years in this market with a lot of revolutionary impacts, as we have highlighted in previous questions. But you look at this country, there is what I describe as a award paralysis. Practically everybody who can design a plaque is giving awards. Very few serious platforms like yours that genuinely have metrics for rewarding those they reward.
Yeah. So the thing for us, there's a reason why we are 19 years. And I took, because I'm involved in the evolution of the brand, I can tell you where I think, whether I'm alive or not, but I pray I'm alive to see it. Yeah. Then 30 years, I can tell you where we'll be. When we started in Nigeria, we knew like after a while we were going to go continental. And after that, you know, right now we're getting a lot of global attention as the most sought after recognition. It's a gold standard recognition in sustainability in Africa. So we are there, the conversations are around that. But this is what we do differently. There are two kinds of awards like you. Yeah, there's recognition award, where I can choose to recognize you because I like you, I've seen something you do. But there's also the competitive awards, right? We try
Maybe we'll have three categories.
Yeah.
The recognition awards, the competitive ones, and then the traded awards, where people pay money to be
No,
rewarded.
we don't do where people pay
No, I
money.
know.
No, we don't do
I
that
know.
because we try to keep the standardization. That is why we have been unable to attract sponsorship for 19 years. Because you see, sometimes when you do awards like this and you're trying to interface with brands and they're telling you that, you have to assure me, because I'm coming with my MD, that will win. Unfortunately, I cannot do that. On the board, we have a panel of judges. Each year we have 9. Only 2 of them are Nigerian, the rest are from all over the world. And these are people who have also carried our brands into the conversations in the UN, everywhere, because they are part of our processes. And everything is thorough. If you win, you win. If you don't win, even if you're my mother or someone close, I can't guarantee. I can only advise you, I think these are the criteria, So we've tried to differentiate that. So when people win and they go home with the trophy, which is made by RSO, and by the way, the trophy is also, the maker of the trophy is the same who makes the Oscars. So we have that standard. We're projecting into a future market. For us, because we are coming from a disadvantaged industry, right? We wanted to connote excellence and excellence. So we don't have those room for, because you buy a table, because you do that. Our winners are winners. And over the years, I've had friends who get angry when they come back.
Yeah, they didn't win.
They didn't win, and I say, sorry, I couldn't do anything. But, I come back and, they should have do this, because there's a criteria. And so when you have standardization, see, you cannot be promoting responsible behavior, right?
And approach your processes irresponsibly.
You can't. You've killed the brand. So we're 19 now. We're looking forward to a mega 20 years, driving this vision through thick and thin, no financing. Earlier on you asked me people ask me, how do we make money? My joy, I think I told a journalist in a press conference 3 years ago, I said, this is what it is. If I was bringing ladies from Brazil to come and
Dance.
yeah, brands would
Samba.
throw their money at us, right? Half-clad women, they'll do that. But when you're trying to promote responsible behavior, people know what you're trying to do is very important and is good, but it's not flashy. So promoting responsibility has its own cost. But having said that, the happiest moments for me is that when we go on the verification visit, and that's one of the things we are different. We send cameras, every entry, we go look at it. We take the pictures, interview your beneficiaries through the gamut of everything, bring it for the judges to judge. There are people calling us from far-flung villages who have heard of this brand, where a company has provided them roads, given them schools, and please come and see what is. They're the ones calling us now.
Yeah.
So because of this, brands are going far and wide, you understand, to make their presence felt. That is the gain for us. I may not know whose life was saved in the hospital, but the fact that we have created a platform where brands now struggle on the value of not of their products, of their presence, and their responsible behavior, their sustainability practice. Believe me, if I die now, I've achieved my mission.
We're not dying. We're looking at a future where professionals like you play more significant, more measurable roles in other affairs other than this industry. I know that in, I think, last 2 terms or so, you went into politics to contest for a House of Reps seat in your
Yes, I did.
state. And it didn't go as expected.
Yeah.
Almost, if I may say, expected by us. But there are some of us who almost try to draw a very clearly defined line between politics and private sector professionalism. What is your view about this? Should a lot more of us get involved in the management of our public affairs, especially given that a few of us who have gone, who were successful, came out with a lot of criticism following them about their failures, about some of those things. But when we sit and talk, you see the kind of conversations, the kind of responses that you don't get from engaging traditional politicians. I don't know the kind of traditional politician, and I've interviewed many in my career that will sit with me, and I won't get bored for 1 hour. That I will still going. I'm still going. Should a lot more of us get involved in the public sector, or should we just keep that Berlin Wall of division between the public sector and the private sector standing?
Now, but the Berlin Wall is almost crumbling. I tell you, what produced the Labour Party presidential candidate last time, even though he has a name recall and people love him, wasn't because of his name. He was able to pull that number and score over 6 million votes in a presidential election because that Berlin Wall is crumbling. And now what is that Berlin Wall? We were talking about sustainability earlier, brands, everything. It's the same thing that applies here. People are becoming more aware that the spirit of NSAS has never died. It's a generational spirit. It just hangs in there, and it's a spirit of revolution. People want things to change, right? That is one. Secondly, it's always very important. This morning I was talking to someone I met for the first time. I said, you're a politician. I don't like politicians. I hear they do a lot of diabolical things. I said, have you met one before, or you're just hearing? And of course, there are stories like that. But we must make this point very clear. There are professional politicians.
Career politicians.
Professionals in politics.
Okay.
Now, for someone like me, right, you know my story, you know my background. I'm a professional who has chosen to take my gifts and my talent. I come from Obubra Echung Federal Constituency. It's so far, it's almost 1,000 kilometers from where we sit right now. You need to go and see the situation of the people where I come from, right? I went into politics after working as a consultant to late Senator Uche Chukwumerije, who was head of the Senate Committee on Establishment. He actually brought me into, he was trying to push a bill on corporate social responsibility. And the period I stayed with him in Abuja for 3 weeks. And I would walk to the House of Rep and sit in the gallery and listen to the conversations. I would do the same thing at the Senate. You know, what hit me there was then I said, no, if these are the quality of persons who are taking decisions for the rest of us, then we have a problem. See, it's very difficult. I mean, very easy for you to blame Tinubu, President Tinubu right now, right? Because he's president. But I tell you from my own little understanding, the biggest problems we have is not the man who is president or who is governor. It's this other tier of government that are supposed to create laws and create the enablement for the respect of those laws or compliance to those laws. And that's the parliament or the houses of assembly. That's where bad leadership starts from, right? So I went into politics feeling that, you know, if I could carry my advocacy, I could be a voice on the floor. I could carry some of these things I've learned from the private sector. It could bring about some change. When I ran for House of Rep twice. First one was a baptism of fire. I came back the second time. I learned from the first time, took my campaign to the grassroots. People used to ask me, who is your godfather? I said, I don't have a godfather, but I have God the Father. But I understood the dynamics as a communications person. I took my campaigns house to house. So by the time I became a force, those who were gods, as they called themselves, didn't even...
We're looking for us an adopted son.
Understand? I mean, last primaries in my party, the difference, 29, 28, I lost by just one vote with people who were working with the establishment. And I know because of me, people who were angry and went to the general election polls and frustrated that candidate. And right now, even if I say I wasn't running in 2027, I would not have peace. But the point is this: we need more people who understand that God sent you to this world to be the salt of the earth, not to eat the soup. We need people who understand that. More people like that in politics. We need people who have a means of livelihood outside of politics. It makes no sense that I come to you, Ikem, and I say, please vote for me. I will improve the quality of the economy of yours, and all those things.
In fact, you
I cannot point to anything
coming to the studio
that I have done in my life to show you that I have converted 1 naira to 1,000 or to 10,000 or converted 100,000 to 1 million. I'm a thief. Nigerians, as a populace, have to become more engaged and interested in the kind and the quality of people they vote for. They send to the parliament, they send to the houses or elect as leaders. That's where it starts from. Until we get that, when we get that part right, you find out that slowly we begin to, come out of that. We're in a hole. There are people who feel you must pledge allegiance to somebody. No. Yes, those days, there are things that if people are corrupt, they will control certain things. But the people that are aware, you can't do those things. If the man you ask to go and rig election himself has 3 children at home, none, they've gotten universities, you couldn't send any of them to school, and because of the bad policies and politics, and you tell that kind of person, the person will say, okay, but when he gets there, we had a situation like that in Abia State. That's why we have the governor that we have. Someone who refused to play ball. So we need people who understand what the time requires in politics. And I'm not the only one, by the way. Even in our industry, Tokumbo of TPT also ran for Senate. So we have more people like that. And you find out that gradually, when we eventually get there, we will know that we don't only represent ourselves, we represent the industry that we come from, and become a voice for Nigerians in general.
It is on this note that we come to an end.
Yeah.
Today, we know that when we call on you again,
definitely,
to exhaust the inexhaustible themes. You understand? You are a man of many parts now, CSR, PR, leadership and politics. We know that we will have another time out with you to treat this so that our viewers can have a full benefit of your knowledge. Like I always say, this is an MBA class. Yes. That's what we do here. Yeah, if you don't share knowledge, the society won't grow.
Definitely.
Thank you very much one more time for being with us.
Thank you, Kim. It's a pleasure being here with you.
And on these notes, we call time on today's session at the cafe, the C-Suite Cafe. We know that we are going to come to you again with another Nigerian that is very cerebral and that is willing to share all that he knows about business and leadership and policy for all of us to learn. Special thanks once again to TBWA, the agency who found us worthy to use their facilities to generate this content for you. TBWA is an advertising agency of note in Nigeria, and they are our partners on this journey. We appreciate them and we thank them, especially their Chief Executive Officer, Kelechi Nwosu. Long live. Well, this is our token. We have taken advantage of you, your friendship, and your intellect today. Yeah. And for all our guests, we know the value of what they are giving us. Yeah. And this is just our token of appreciation to not just thank you, but to also celebrate your depth of intellect. That's what we do in this cafe. We want to extract knowledge from our friends, from our colleagues, from our mentors, from our seniors, from everybody who is a serious player in Nigeria, because we felt it is time to begin to share knowledge. People can't continue dying with the depth of knowledge that they have. And we appreciate your being with us today, sharing what you know with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. But before you go, I want to say to everyone that I would also, I would wear this with pride because it's you, and you're one of the people who have supported us from 2007 to date. So I would also wear this brand and support it whatever way that I can and promote it wherever I go. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I also would like to present this to you, the Social Enterprise Report.
Thank you.
You and a few other people provided the inspiration for this, and I hope it enriches your library and gives you more ideas on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Today I've had so much fun on Seafood Cafe. On my way here, I told myself that I was going to be sitting and interviewed by someone I call the Professor. That's my nickname for him, the Professor of Nigerian journalism space. Ikem Okuhu. So for those of you out there, if you're looking for deep conversation, adapt to your environment, very in-depth, insightful, deep, I would like you to tune to the Seafood Cafe with Ikem Okuhu and the wonderful crew behind the scene. Thank you very much.